Good morning. Welcome back to Commercial Radio, to the third lesson in this chapter that we're working on right now. So we're looking at radio landscape and commercial station management, and today will be part 3. But just if we quickly have a look at what we have looked at up until now. So in our first lesson, we had a bit of an introduction into radio and a look at the evolution of South African radio specifically. And then we started looking at commercial radio. We said that the sector is divided into 3 different areas, which is public service radio, commercial radio, and community radio. Then we mentioned that there are over 300 licensed radio stations in South Africa, and that excludes the internet-based stations. 22 of these are privately owned commercial radio stations, and 19 are owned by the SABC, and the rest are community stations. Then we mentioned how a radio station license is handed out, and radio station licenses are granted by ICASA. We mentioned that ICASA is the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, who are mandated to issue licenses, ensure universal services and access, monitor the industry, hear disputes, plan, control, and manage frequency spectrum, and protect customers from unfair business practices. We briefly mentioned the words digital terrestrial television, including digital audio broadcasting and digital radio mondial. What does a radio station sell? A radio station's product is its content. It can sell that content not only within its footprint, but also outside of that traditional footprint if there's an interest from another market. And we said, like many commercial businesses, radio stations are dependent on consumers, so their listeners, customers or clients, so they're advertisers, sponsors, donors, and partners, stakeholders, in the case of state-owned enterprises, and shareholders in the case of privately or commercially owned radio stations. Why does commercial radio stations exist? They exist to deliver a profit in the same way that a business would, okay? So what's happening? Stations are fighting for the time with their listeners. So they must have a clear, defined offering designed to attract and sustain their audiences. We mentioned the 3 major contenders within South Africa's commercial radio space, and those are Kagiso Media, Prime Media Broadcasting, and AME, or African Media Entertainment. And then from SABC's perspective, they have 3 commercially designed radio stations that they operate, namely 5FM, Metro FM, and Good Hope FM. From here, we moved on to have a look at station managers specifically, now that we have an idea about the radio landscape. And what did we say? What is a station manager? A station manager is an overall business owner responsible for all activity that takes place at a radio station. We said a station manager is the ultimate brand custodian of a radio station. They are the ultimate authority of the radio station brand and the lead spokesperson of the radio station. So yes, most listeners won't know who a radio station manager is, okay, because that person isn't on air. But the station manager is still the ultimate authority. Being a station manager is both about leadership and about management. So we split these into 2 different categories. What did we say? What is management versus leadership? So management is about overseeing the work of others and ensuring that the work is carried out according to a pre-established strategy. So it's overseeing and making sure it's done, versus leadership, which is about communication that positively influences a group of people toward common goals. So on the one side, you have now made sure that they're doing it, but on the other side, you're positively influencing them and making sure that everyone has the correct or the same strategy in place and that everyone knows where we're heading at the end of the day. Station managers have the power to influence people as they head up the station. They are, however, only great leaders if they have the ability to socially influence people and their processes. So we're coming back to that leadership side of it, okay? So again, leadership. That's the only way that they can be a great leader, if they socially influence people and their processes. Inspiring people to do more than just their jobs is a lot more difficult, though, than ensuring that people are merely doing what they're paid to do. Think about yourself. If you've ever had a job or even just with classwork or anything else, or even with the lectures and things like that. Most people simply do what they're paid to do. So you would do your everyday and that's it, stop there. Think about how much it will take you to be inspired to do over and above that, to do more than what you're being paid to do, okay? That is what a good leader is supposed to do, and that's a lot more difficult than it sounds. So inspiring people to do more than just their jobs. So there are two ever-present factors that influence the way in which a station manager must operate. The first is the station manager must consider the business of a radio station. That's, at the end of the day, their aim. They have a group of shareholders or regulators that set targets and requirements that must be met. And then secondly, there's always potential conflict between generating revenue and between making profit. There's always potential conflict between generating revenue and making profit versus ensuring that quality content is delivered to a dependent audience. The station manager spends a lot of their time managing conflict and ensuring that there's always a balance between the making of money and delivering value to an audience in society. Okay? An effective station manager has a detailed understanding of the 3 pillars of radio. So what did we say are the 3 pillars of radio? Programming and content, sales and revenue, and marketing. They lead a varied and creative team of individuals who need constant support, inspiration, and skills development. So great leaders can coach and guide and will reward good performance. So to have a good station manager has to manage the team, the salary structures, the size of the audience, the license conditions, and the advertising climate. They need to be focused on long-term and have the capacity to motivate and convince others with strong beliefs. Be able to embrace change, that's a big one. Have that hunger for understanding their audience members and be able to translate their audience's needs into a radio product. So if you put all of these elements together, then all of these together make for a leader who can build excellent teams that are the ultimate sustainable competitive advantage, especially in the media industry. We've mentioned a lot now that gets put into what makes a good station manager. What are the mistakes that you think a station manager makes? These are the main mistakes that a station manager might make, which are taking on too many projects, approaching tasks in a manner that is overly rational, encouraging infighting, attacking authority and established conventions without being able to consider alternatives, and trying to achieve too much in a short space. If we look at the first one there, taking on too many projects. Sometimes a station manager may take on too many projects over too long a period of time and fail to adequately prioritize them. Prioritizing is really important. Within such a fast-paced environment like the media world, this can be a very common problem that station managers experience. Often as information from audiences or regulators, clients and stakeholders pour into the radio station, a station manager will get bogged down trying to manage each and every, often conflicting, piece of feedback. A good station manager, however, will be able here to prioritize and clearly articulate the main priorities to all relevant inputters, so to all relevant parties involved with giving input, so that they can understand and support those priorities. This is really important because in this way, all relevant parties also realize how they specifically will benefit from a focused approach to establishing such priorities. Because it's quite easy to take on too much and just have it fall apart. But with clear communication and structure, it's important that everyone can see where they fit in within this, okay, within this structure of projects. Okay, the second one there, approaching tasks in such a manner that is overly rational. What do we mean by that? Unfortunately, a big part of a station manager's role is negotiations and building consensus, which are very delicate tasks. And sometimes what can happen with these delicate tasks are that a station manager can lose their focus. Why? Because the media industry is such an emotional space where people deliver content. What this means is it can't be managed exactly the same way as items on a shelf could, for instance. So it's not completely logical. So as a result, if the station manager reduces the tasks of a radio station to very specific and rational tasks, what's going to happen to the radio station? We're going to start losing content. What's going to happen to a radio station? The content is going to suffer. This might also influence the pace of delivering content in terms of paying attention to more subtle needs. Sometimes it might feel like there's not enough time to build team consensus and explore all of the options, as a decision on whether or not certain information needs to air needs to be made immediately. A good station manager is aware that space and time needs to be created in this fast-paced environment in order to establish those subtle activities in the process of media management. So what does that mean? It means that a lot of times, if there's a very big breaking story that's taking over society, there isn't always enough time to speak with everyone, to get everyone's opinion with regards to whether this content should be aired or not, okay? A lot of times those decisions need to be made literally on the spot, instantly. And that's one of the things a good station manager needs to consider. If we move on to the third one there, encouraging infighting. So what does that mean? What does infighting mean? As we all know, the media industry is highly competitive. Okay, it's one of the most competitive industries. So what is infighting? Infighting can also be seen as conflict. Some managers actually encourage conflict or infighting for power as a way to keep control over the employee group. Often DJs or presenters would compete for the best show slots and aim to earn better rates and opportunities in order to become highly profiled, as well as highly profiled and well known within their communities. In the same way then as the presenters might fight for these specific positions, operational staff aim to rise in the structure of management so that they can make the significant decisions regarding content, sales deals, regulations, and brand marketing. In addition to this, the size of the team at a radio station is always smaller than the team found in other types of product businesses. Radio stations run lean teams in order to be able to provide better profitability, and often to share resources across multiple radio stations or media brands within their specific conglomerate. This creates an environment that is overly competitive among employees. Think about South Africa. Take us for an example. If you think about the amount of radio stations, so let's say there are 270 radio stations within South Africa. That means you only have 270 station manager positions within the country. That also means there are only 270 breakfast hosts within the country, 270 marketing managers within the country, 270 program managers within the country, okay? Just under 60 million people in South Africa, so 270 out of almost 60 million is tiny. There's not a lot of opportunities within the radio industry. That means the odds of securing one of these positions are quite low, which means that it makes the industry just more competitive, okay? Lastly, they ensure that every member of the team values their role in delivering content to the audience. If we look at the fourth one there, attacking authority and established conventions without being able to consider alternatives. A station manager may attack authority and conventions that are established without being able to consider alternatives and without practicing what is known as managing up. And then the last one there, trying to achieve too much in a short space. A station manager's primary currency for the radio station is the size of the radio station's audience. Okay, so a radio station's currency, listeners. And then from here, we move on to page 45 in your textbook, to where we're looking at today. So how does one now become a station manager? So now we know what it takes to do the job, but how does one become one? A station manager can attain their position with different types of experiences and qualifications. So one doesn't study to become a station manager per se. Successful station managers generally come from a background of programming and content, from on-air and producer positions, and from a strong marketing or sales background, okay? So either you were previously a program manager, or you were a content producer, or you were a marketing manager, or you were in sales. So I myself went from a management position into a station manager. So what sets station managers apart from one another? Because we all know they're not all the same. The ability to develop a powerful strategy for the station that makes it stand out against its competitors, that's what makes them stand out, sets them apart from one another. A successful station manager also needs to motivate each and every person working for the station to buy into their strategy, as well as implement in their particular area of responsibility. In this way, a station manager's job involves guiding every person working at the station in the right direction. High quality programming takes hours of work, a lot of creative development, many failed ideas, multiple avenues of consideration that did not come to fruition, and a great deal of talent. Like any team, radio professionals make mistakes and doubt themselves. However, no matter what argument may ensue, the radio station's entire team has the goal of creating the most desirable content to their listenership, the most desirable content that their listenership would enjoy and want to keep listening to. Their aim is to create what's called car park radio, the kind of radio that keeps you listening even when your car's already been switched off. Why would you do this? Why would you still keep on listening to the radio when you've stopped at your destination and when you've arrived? Because you want to hear the rest of that story. You don't want to get out until you've heard the rest of that specific conversation. Think about the last time that you had that moment. And I'm not talking about a song. Yes, we've all sat in a car to finish listening to a song that we're hearing. But when last did you sit in the car and you simply wanted to hear the end of that conversation? Without the team, there is no radio station. The station manager will therefore consider a number of different ways in which to keep their team happy. And these include adequate compensation, implementing training and professional development programs, transparent and regular communication, recognizing success, tolerating mistakes, and creating space and time for innovation. If we break these down, because these are quite important, okay? These are how you as a station manager will try to keep your team happy, because you realize that you need a great team to have a great radio station. Although adequate compensation may seem like an obvious way in which to keep teams happy, in the dynamic media world, not everyone is motivated by their salary. There are numerous graduates and interns who will work for free simply to get a foot in the door. Think about yourself. I'm sure one or two of you will also think this way, that you'd rather do a year for free just to have that foot in the door. While several more junior producers and presenters will work graveyard shifts at very low rates in order to prove their worth to the radio station in the hopes of being taken on permanently at a higher compensation rate then. Due to the competition involved in the industry, this can upset the normal balance of the compensation structures. Station managers are therefore required to carefully establish and monitor compensation for all levels of staff, so as to be sure that they are retaining skilled people while not overpaying those that have already been around for a long time. Management is also required to reward senior members of the team upon whom the station may be more reliant in terms of delivering on the station's objectives. We look at the second one, implementing training and professional development programs. It's essential that any staff team is consistently challenged and engaged in a learning experience with regards to their work. If new skills are not developed over time, members of a team can become bored, discouraged, and demotivated. A spirit of ongoing learning and development, as well as self-education and motivation, is therefore important for healthy teams. Furthermore, these adjustments have led to change in many people's job roles in the area of station management. Digital media has also changed the way in which marketers and programmers do their work, which is something we're going to focus on a little bit later. But so in this way, teams must continually develop their ability to utilize different platforms and programs to the benefit of the station. A station manager should also be concerned with a strong succession plan. By doing this, they will know which members of their team are likely to take over key management roles when those roles are vacated. Station managers also put in place various professional training and development programs to ensure leaders of self to enable leaders of self to transition into leaders of others in order to facilitate strong managers in the future in their business. Okay, so people who are really good with managing themselves are then trained into management of others. The third one, transparent and regular communication. A team will be better able to function optimally when they have a clear and present picture of what their leaders are trying to achieve. We've previously spoken about managing up, but now when managing down, it is essential that junior members of the team as well as middle management offer their buy-in to the strategies that are being put in place. The better the team understands what the station manager wants to achieve and why, the more able they are to make decisions that contribute to the overall goal. And that's what you want. You want everyone to be able to contribute to the station's goal. Individual tasks and roles can become quite isolated in nature, thereby enabling many members of the team to merely perform to the specific jobs that they are told to do. So we get back to that management versus leadership here. What regular and transparent communication does for those individuals is help them to see how they fit into the station's machinery and division, which then enables them to better understand their contributions to the team and in turn helps them to do their jobs more effectively. When there is change afoot, which is often in the media business, it is essential that the team is informed and supported in their actions in this changing environment as far in advance as possible. Why do I say this? Why do I say it's so important that you tell people as far in advance as possible if change is happening? Again, think about yourself. Most people don't respond well to change. Most people don't respond well to change. So it's become even more important that teams understand the truth about what's happening in the business. Even if the station manager cannot communicate certain things due to it being confidential. So an example will be when a high-profile presenter is resigning from the radio station, or when the station has decided to replace the breakfast show host with a new presenter from another radio station. It's important to get the team up to speed with these changes. Sometimes merely saying something along the lines of, I'm working on something big, or I can't tell you about it yet, but as soon as I've got the pieces in place, you will be the first to know. Something like that will be enough. Recognizing success is another point that may seem obvious, okay? It might seem obvious that that's one of those things that people want. People want recognition. It's one of the 3 R's. So it's remuneration, retention, and recognition. So as much as it might seem obvious, this depends on how you define success. In order to build a good team, the team's leader needs to know and understand what success looks like for each team member as they contribute to the overall success of the station. Every station manager wants to see growth in their station audience measurement numbers. However, it is difficult for many operational team members at a radio station to associate this with their day-to-day tasks. An effective team leader can recognize the parts that each member play in delivering success. So for example, without the sales team, there would be no revenue coming in order to pay salaries and to cover the station's day-to-day expenses. What other examples are there of these? Without music compilers, there would be no music scheduled and no enticing structure for the new music playlist to keep listeners listening for longer. Without the newsroom, there would be no news bulletins, and listeners won't know what's happening in the world. It's also important to create moments in which to call out these successes. Building a strong team involves making the moments of contribution and success tangible to everyone in the team. Sometimes this can be as simple as recognizing and thanking someone in the team setting, or sending them an email detailing what the leader has noticed about the individual's particular contributions. The next one, they're tolerating mistakes. When moving with speed and taking a business in a new direction, there are plenty of mistakes that are going to be made. An effective leader can guard against mistakes by being clear and upfront about their expectations and by monitoring operations. It's important to remember that mistakes are part of the learning experiences, and that if the proper approvals and feedback points are put into place during the operational process, these mistakes won't be critical of nature. Where mistakes are made, it's vital that they are learned from and understood to those involved, to the point where they won't easily or readily make that same mistake again. And then the last one there, creating space and time for innovation. So recently, the buzzword across all types of businesses has been innovation. It's one of those, especially with COVID, that we heard the whole time. We need to innovate. We need to come up with new and exciting ways of pushing the business so that we don't fold with amidst COVID. Okay, so innovation was everywhere. It's easy to think of innovation as the invention of large, life-changing technology or products or services. However, most innovations are small, incremental, and sometimes long-suffering successes that are innovative purely because they have improved someone's lives in some way. So how can we better understand what qualifies as innovation? Innovation can be expressed in words, through reactions, in narrative descriptions, and through strategic criteria. So these four. If we break those four down in your textbook on page 48, innovation described through words. These are ideas that we think are original and unexpected. For example, so innovation described through words. These are ideas that we think are original and unexpected. So for example, things we think have never been thought of or seen before, or something new that is useful. So that's the first one. Innovations described through reactions. This refers to that aha moment. The moment we wonder why we didn't think of this before. The third one there is innovations described through narrative descriptions. These innovations come from when we challenge the status quo and how things have previously been done by bringing ideas from different places into one space. And lastly, strategic criteria. Usually this is where something like a product or service improves from its current form. This type of innovation can also be about fulfilling customer needs that have not yet been met, about making lives or jobs better, more exciting, productive, and satisfying, or about delighting and capturing the imaginations and purchase behavior of consumers in order to turn them into more loyal customers. This type of innovation also allows brands and businesses that own those brands to compete in different categories of the market. For a business to thrive and for teams to develop and become stronger, innovation has to be present in the minds and the hearts of every team member, not just the station manager. This means that team members come to work every day with the aim of doing better, doing more, and finding new ways of improving the station. An innovative culture involves creating this type of mindset and sustaining it. An effective leader can achieve this by creating the space for problem solving thinking, and for taking manageable risks. Keyword there, manageable, to determine whether they will work out to improve the products, services, and processes of the radio station. It's about a risky innovation that South African youth music radio station 5FM took some years back. Innovation in this case was about innovating using strategic criteria. The risk that the station took in developing 5FM TV allowed it to play in a completely different category, which was online visual content. By doing this, it brought DJs closer to their audiences, thereby serving its market more effectively and to greater levels of satisfaction. It also allowed the station to keep its listeners in a wider loop of the station's particular brand and content environment. Whether the station was counting its listeners via radio audience measures or online views, it didn't matter, as these audiences were still station loyalists consuming 5FM's content in a way that better suited them. 5FM TV gave the station a face when previously it had only been a voice. Effective leaders are interested in people who can collaborate, who are industrious, who have a clear understanding and a willingness to contribute to the company's objectives, who are optimistic, and who have good communication skills. So there's quite a few stuff that are incorporated here. A good station manager knows the people they manage and understands what motivates them, and is therefore flexible in how they give and take with different people. The more diverse the team is, the better it will be at solving problems and achieving great things for the station. People who view problems as challenges and enjoy immersing themselves in order to solve them are great people to have on a radio team. There are countless of stories of station managers who have cultivated junior interns and low-level graveyard producers into upper management, CEOs, station managers, and breakfast show hosts on national radio stations. And with that, that brings us to the end of this lesson. So your homework is then on page 49, that section I just told you about 5FM. So it starts on page 49 and it continues up until page 51. So please go read that for me. In the next lesson, we will continue with station management. So with that, I say goodbye for now, up until next time.